Hey, what's going on guys? Oscarmini here, and this video is a comparison video of some of the best budget devices you can get right now. The Infinix Zero 8 here and the Redmi Note 9S. They actually have different specs but are close in terms of the pricing and the value they offer for their various prices. So this video is basically going to be that video that helps you decide if you should go for the cheaper Redmi Note 9S, which retails for 99,000 naira, roughly $250, or the more expensive Zero 8 retailing for about 117,000 naira, roughly $300, and which gives you the most value for money, more like the value king here. So without taking much of your time, yo guys, let's get started. The boxes here are usually where I start off with in these comparisons. For both devices, you get the smartphone out of the boxes, a TPU case to protect the devices, SIM ejectors, some stickers, paperwork and user guides. Both come with USB Type-C cables for charging and data transfer. Speaking of charging these devices, you get an 18-watt charger for the fast charging on the Redmi Note 9S, but that of the Infinix Zero 8 is on another level as you are getting a 33-watt super fast charger. The extra item you get from the Infinix's box is the earpiece, which you won't find from the Redmi Note 9S, typical of Xiaomi. In terms of the boxes and accessories, the Infinix actually does take the lead. Taking a look at the design of both devices, the Infinix Zero 8 here is actually made out of plastic, no form of glass aside for the front display panel here. Every other aspect in terms of the build feels actually a little cheap when you compare it to the build you get from the Redmi Note 9S here. The Note 9S is made out of aluminum and there is glass on both the rear and front side of this device. You have a Corning Gorilla Glass 5 protection for the Redmi Note 9S. For placement of buttons and I/O, both devices have the volume rocker to the right of the devices with a side-mounted fingerprint sensor. I actually prefer the placement of the Infinix as you can easily reach to unlock this smartphone. You still have the audio jacks retained on both devices, USB Type-C and down-firing speakers. Both devices feature quad camera setups, which I'll talk more about in the camera comparison section here. Lest I forget, there's water repellent coating on the Redmi Note 9S. Hence, in general, the Redmi Note 9S is the device to pick when you consider the overall build quality. But the Infinix actually feels more convenient to use for one-handed use. For the displays, you get a 6.85-inch IPS LCD panel from the Infinix Zero 8, which features a 90Hz refresh rate and 180Hz touch sample rate, and about an 86.7 screen-to-body ratio. While on the Redmi Note 9S side of things, you get a 6.67-inch IPS LCD panel too, also featuring 1080p resolution and a 395 ppi density with an 84.6 screen-to-body ratio. In terms of the look and brightness, the Infinix gets the win here. Now for the overall score on display, I still would pick the Infinix over the Redmi Note 9S, for the reason being that you get the best of the large LCD panel world, a massive display in terms of the size for maximum media consumption, and also the better refresh rate, which is somewhat noticeable. Just bear in mind that you get a better Corning Gorilla Glass 5 protection from the Note 9S as opposed to the version 3 you're getting from the Zero. Speaking of the sound quality, here's where the Redmi regains the lead. The audio coming from the device, this Redmi Note 9S sounds better, crispier and clearer at higher volumes from my use so far, but they are generally about the same level of loudness on these devices. On the performance side of things, you get the Helio G90T for the Infinix Zero 8 here, coupled with 8GB of RAM and 128GB of internal storage, while the Redmi Note 9S here comes bundled with 6GB of RAM, 128GB of internal storage, and the Snapdragon 720G processor. If you want to compare the AnTuTu scores for both devices, the Infinix takes the lead, especially when considering the graphic-intensive apps like games. But in the real-world day-to-day activity and use, one might not be able to discern the difference between these two devices. Of course, you would get more apps running in the background on the Infinix, but then the Redmi's processing is more efficient and saves you more battery life. Here's a side-by-side speed test for these devices though. So in terms of the processing, both are kings in their own right. You get a better gaming experience from the Infinix Zero 8 here and a slightly better processing on the Redmi Note 9S. Also, you get better power efficiency from the Redmi Note 9S. I would consider this a tie, and you wouldn't go wrong picking any of these devices in terms of performance. To your left, which is my right, this is the Infinix Zero 8, which packs a 4500 mAh battery to power the high refresh rate and bigger display, a more powerful processor, if you will. While the right here, my left, is a Redmi Note 9S, which comes bundled with a 5020 mAh battery to power the slightly smaller, less power draining display and chip. All in all, you get a better battery experience using the Redmi Note 9S. But when you consider the fact that the Zero 8 comes bundled with a 33-watt charger that charges this smartphone from 0 to 100 in about 70 minutes, when compared to the over 130 minutes used in charging this device, the Redmi Note 9S. Now over to the cameras. The Zero 8 here has a quad camera setup at the rear with a 64 megapixel main lens, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. While taking a look at the Redmi Note 9S here, it reveals a 48 megapixel main lens, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel macro, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. Now, the number of pixels doesn't really matter or translate to better quality photos on these devices. So we decided to put these cameras to test, and here's what we came out with. The front-facing cameras, on the other hand, are 48 megapixel and 8 megapixel ultra-wide for the Infinix dual setup here, while you get a 16 megapixel sensor on the Redmi Note 9S. Shockingly, you get better looking photos from the Redmi Note 9S in my test, despite the more amount of pixels you're getting from the Infinix device. For videos, you can record up to 4K for both of these devices on their rear cameras. More options come from the Redmi Note 9S, giving you more or several frame rates. Both devices come with EIS for stabilization, but I prefer the Xiaomi experience and implementation though here again.
Hey guys, here's a front-facing camera video test between the Infinix Zero 8 to my left and the Redmi Note 9S to the right here. It's actually raining here and everything is noisy, so do tell me what you think about the audio quality coming off the smartphones and the color reproduction you guys are seeing here. What do you think?
So my final verdict on this device is, which of these devices gives you more value for money? In terms of the features, I would definitely want to go with the Infinix Zero 8. I mean, you get more accessories, better display tech, better charging, a slightly more powerful processing power, you know, the good stuff. But this is for an extra $50, so it should be expected. On the other hand, if you want something like a device that gives you the best build quality, better battery life on a single charge, a more powerful processing power, almost as good as what you get from the Infinix device here, and even a better camera setup for a price of $50 less than the Infinix Zero 8, then the Redmi Note 9S is a guy to get the job done. For me at this point, it is a matter of preference. Spend an extra $50 for better charging and slightly better display, processing, or save $50 for an almost identical experience with a better build quality and actually better cameras. Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do not forget to like, share, and also subscribe to this channel if you found this video helpful. Other than that, it's goodbye, and I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Cuídate.